Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is George. I will be your tour guide. And today's tour is called The Secrets of Death Avenue, and it's brought to you by Occupy the Pipeline and the Fossil Fools. So we are an organization that meets in the West Village every week, and we're trying to stop this gas pipeline infrastructure, and we'll give you a lot of information about all that later on. First, I want to thank the Municipal Arts Society for setting this up. Today is the Jane's Walk NYC. It's an annual event that honors the legacy of Jane Jacobs, who was an author, a very famous author. She wrote a famous book called Death and Life of Great American Cities, which has become a classic in urban studies, and she was also a grassroots activist in this neighborhood especially. So it's an additional honor to be able to do a Jane's Walk in the West Village, which was a neighborhood that she really loved, and I think she would be proud of all of you for coming out today. So without further ado, let's cross 14th Street and head into the Meatpacking District. So it looks like we have a police escort today. We actually asked them to be here to protect us because today is the Secrets of Death Avenue, so it could be very dangerous. We are currently located here on 14th Street. This landscape that you see under here used to be the land of the Lenape Indians that lived here a long time ago. This was one of the most productive estuaries in the world. We had fresh water coming down from the Hudson, salt water coming from the sea. You had oysters, the size of plates, this big. Schools of fish and nurseries for fish to thrive in these wetlands here, which is now the East Village. Over here on the west side, you could imagine American chestnut trees, towering over our heads, and black bear roaming through here. In colonial times, in 1609, you have Henry Hudson sails into the harbor. He's a British working for the Dutch, set up a colony on the southern tip of Manhattan in 1624. That's called Fort Amsterdam. Now they set up it's like a merchant colony. They're making money selling beaver furs. But within 50 years, the beavers in Manhattan were extinct. Within 100 years, the wolves went extinct. So when I'm talking about the Secrets of Death Avenue, it really starts kind of with this tradition. In Manhattan, in New York, we have a very commercial-driven culture, but at the expense of this sort of natural life that we're trying to bring back. In fact, since the 1970s, the water quality has been improving a lot, and a lot of fish are returning to the harbor. So we're trying to keep that going. As you can see on the map, the roads extend all the way into the water. Why is that? Much of New York is built on landfill. Like in the Netherlands, we reclaim land from the ocean. So in colonial times, the colonial officials, they would let people they would give people water plots on the condition that they filled those areas. So they would dump their garbage and their oyster shells, and sometimes there'd be a ship at the pier, and they would sink the ship and then build on top of that. And we just load it with junk and then build on top and top. So about 25% of lower Manhattan here is built on top of landfill, and here, about a block this way, there was the shoreline. So we pushed the shoreline further out. You'll also notice that the streets in the West Village here are at different angles and shapes. Yeah. This is very rare because it doesn't follow the grid pattern of New York City. In 1811, they set the grid, which is why we have all the streets going perpendicular to each other. I'll read to you a quick line from a short story by O. Henry called "The Last Leaf," which describes this. In a little district west of Washington Square, the streets have run crazy and broken themselves into small strips called places. These places make strange angles and curves. One street crosses itself a time or two. So here you get an idea. By the way, this is called "The Last Leaf," and if you want a good short story, I recommend reading it. But it gives you an idea of what it was like around here. The neighborhood started because some of the more affluent New Yorkers from downtown fled lower Manhattan because people were getting sick with yellow fever and typhoid and all these things. So they set up this little colony here, and they didn't want to change the street pattern. So we still have a street pattern here which resembles the way it was in the 18th century. let's continue walking, unless there's questions. No? Okay, then follow me. Right now we're at Gansevoort Plaza. This is Gansevoort Street. Just in case you're wondering, Peter Gansevoort was a colonel in the Continental Army during the American Revolution, and he was actually the maternal grandfather of Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. Now his name survives with this Hotel Gansevoort. So this was a big, commercial area, and you actually had a railroad which went along 10th Avenue, and that's actually the basis of the title of today's tour, The Secrets of Death Avenue, because so many people were getting run over by this train, people actually getting hit and killed by the train, that they nicknamed the avenue Death Avenue. And here you have a picture of oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it stopped raining. Stopped raining. Here you have a picture of a train with horses and cowboys. Wait, who are these? Oh, these are the dummy boys. So.
The bicyclists are the new cowboys!
Hey folks, you better move! There's a train coming!
A train? Where? There's no trains here.
Alright, we are the West Side Cowboys. You hear that? We're here to warn people that there's trains coming, because people were dying of getting hit by trains on 10th Avenue, and that's why they call it Death Avenue. And the city and the government weren't doing nothing. And we got tired of that. So I got my cowboys together back here to come and warn folks. We come in front of the train and we say, get, because there's a train a-coming. Woo! You guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Even today, you gotta watch out, young man.
Thank you. Here, if you're curious, here's a picture of actually what it used to look like. This is true. They used to have cowboys running in front of the train, but it's a clean burning train, you see. It's a clean burning train, so we don't have to worry.
Oh no!
Oh my God!
Oh my
God! Oh my God!
They killed our tour guide! We tried to warn him.
He's dead, Tim!
Oh my gosh, that's terrible! Oh no!
Hey, wait a second. Let me try something here. All right, let me see what I can do. All right. I'm half Vulcan. The past! The present! The future! Tell me about it! Okay, I will. Your soul is transmogrified. You may rise. It's Russian Easter. You may rise. Okay, I'm going to take over from here. I've transferred his guide essence into my soul. What I propose is that we carefully, watching out for traffic, cross the street and congregate right over here near that awning. Jane Jacobs really valued the vitality and the diversity of the city. She would talk about the sidewalk ballet, the different people she would meet throughout the day. And when I think about that, I think about how the world is very much lives on the interfaces between things. So where the continents collided, you had vents and volcanoes, and that's where life came from originally. Here you have the sea meets the land, and the Hudson meets the land, and most of the species that exist in this world spring out. That's the basis of our food chain, is that area between land and sea. This neighborhood is very much a collision of societies. So after this ceased to be pastoral land and became a settlement, then you had immigrants come in. You had Irish, and then the Italians collided with the Irish. And you had the newly emerging urban environment But then you had the farm produce and the meat coming in by carts from Long Island and rafts and steamboats from New Jersey. And then you had the rise of the industrial age when you had steam ships and you had ocean liners starting to appear. And this area that you'll see a little bit later along the Hudson was where all that would dock. So you had these steamboats crossing the Hudson. You see those old pictures where there's so many boats going every direction. You had the steamboats bringing produce and meat from New Jersey and carts from Long Island. And then you started to get, as things got more industrialized, this place became, the breadbasket of the city, in effect, where all this stuff would come and then get distributed from here even to the outer boroughs. You also had the supplying of the steamships, so it became an industrial size produce market. And then you had trains and trucks as the mechanical age came in, and those trains and trucks would ply these streets, and they'd in effect collide with the horse-drawn carts, and the steamships would in effect collide or share dock space under duress with the steamboats that would supply them. And so that really rose up and that really peaked early this century, getting into the interwar years. But in addition, you also had a collision of, you might say, mainstream society and the underworld. So as Prohibition came in, this neighborhood also became a neighborhood of speakeasies, and people would come from other parts of town who are respectable people. They'd come here and enjoy the sinful pleasures of the speakeasies, and in the daytime they might buy a side of beef, and the nighttime they'd enjoy some different kind of meat. So this is for a long time. This has for a long time been a neighborhood where multiple things happened at the same time throughout the day and throughout the night. Then after World War II, you had a further upscaling of industrialization because our country was very much an isolated country. There was a big debate in the 30s about how much to be involved in the world. By the 40s, we were very much involved in the world. And steam ships over the years started to yield to freighters. Freighters would dock further out in the harbor. And the ocean liners would yield to jetliners, and this neighborhood itself there seemed to be less demand for its services, its provisioning services. And meanwhile, with all this globalization and bringing in food from California and other locations, you also had a transformation of transportation networks, almost a globalization of the food market. And the result of that was that the centers of supplying New York City moved to the outer boroughs instead of being here. This neighborhood went into kind of a long decline, but still. During the 50s, for example, you had the Beat generation, the Beat poets, and into the 60s you had the hippies. So as the number of meatpacking plants were going down from 250 in the heyday down into maybe 30, at the beginning of this century, you also had more artists and more generations of artists moving in here. But still the neighborhood declined, and getting into the 70s and 80s, it was going to be a very dark place. But even then, we had more fringe of society moving in. The bikers, the gay community, people that were just unwelcome elsewhere. Yeah, we had these clubs. Yeah. We had the Minecraft. Yeah. We had the Anvil. I guess for the straight people, they had the Hellfire. Yeah. In fact, the other day when we were blocking out the walk, we were just talking about it, amongst us who were planning the walk. Some guy walked up to us and said, "Oh yeah," he says, "back when I was 12 years old, I used to go to a strip club up here at the corner of 14th and 9th." And he told us that he always had spotlights outside, etc. So this is a memory. And here, you had this, and we can start walking slowly over here. So in effect, you had this neighborhood that was still meatpacking district. You still had the plants. You had with all these other people going on, kind of filling in the spaces where things closed down, they fill it in. So as far as I know, this sign has been here for a very long time. But in the mid to late 80s, a gentleman named Florent Morier, who like Jane Jacobs, appreciated the neighborhood. He would go to the clubs, he'd come out, and he'd talk about the explosion of activity, the horns honking, and the transvestites, and the workers, and everybody else all together. He really celebrated the neighborhood, and he himself was somewhat connected in terms of into the art world. He decided to open up a French restaurant here in this diner, and he called it Florent, because his name was Florent Morier. And Perrot Morier himself, besides being plugged into the art scene, a restaurateur, being plugged into the LGBT scene, he also was himself a social activist. He was an activist on behalf of gay rights, he was an activist on behalf of reproductive rights, and he was an activist on behalf of this neighborhood itself. This construction right here, many of you may be aware of this already, this is the new Whitney Museum. 50,000 square feet of indoor exhibition space, plus something like 18,000 square feet of rooftop exhibition space being built right here.
Hello, my people! I am Robert Moses, and I built this city. In fact, if I had it my way, there'd be a 4-lane expressway going right through Washington Square Park. Now, wouldn't that be convenient? I must say, I am pleased to see the fine borough of Manhattan has continued to expand and develop and expand and develop. And now, I hear you've got a pipeline bringing fracked gas right under an art museum.
Boo!
That's crazy!
How artful! You know, in fact, I say, bring in more pipelines.
Oh my dead body, Bobby!
Where are you?
Me and a group of women and artists stuck your expressway, and we can stop this pipeline!
Oh yeah?
Yeah!
Well, I'd like to see you try.
Well, why don't you come on down here and face me, Jane Jacobs, you coward!
All right, I will. I'll be right down.
Step right up! Step right up, ladies and gentlemen! In this corner, Jane Jacobs! She's got the people power! She's got the creativity and plenty of chutzpah! In this corner, fighting for industry, the power broker! He's got the money, he's got the influence! He's built our bridges, our tunnels, our stadiums! And a giant park to make you forget that there ever was any real nature in NYC. Robert Moses!
Thank you, thank you. Let's go, Janie. Come on.
Come on, Robert. Because we really ain't got no permit for this fight.
TKO, Jay! TKO!
Wait a minute! I don't need to use violence! I've got something better to fight this fight! I've got an angry neighborhood!
Yeah!
Get out the way, boys! Get out the way!
Listen.
Move! Get out the way! Get out the way!
I'm gonna tell Bloomberg. I'm gonna tell Bloomberg.
Get out the way!
Back in season.
Get out the way!
We defeated him this time! It's hard to fight developers and industry, but sometimes you gotta do it, right, folks?
Right.
So, thank you for your help on that. I'm gonna take you back a little bit. Back when New York City, oh, thank you so much. Isn't he lovely? Back from the dead. Just like me and all of you. So, back when New York City was plagued with the yellow fever, and it was crammed full of people, people escaped here to the bucolic, beautiful West Village. It was then pastoral, landscape, fresh air. People wanted to come here for a breathable city. Washington Square Park then had over 20,000 people buried there. Suddenly, they wanted to make it the Champs-Élysées, Fifth Avenue, for all the wealthier people moving in. So they paved over, they put some grass, they made Washington Square Park a nice, beautiful park. They put up the arch, and it suddenly became Washington Square Park. Robert Moses, who you just met right there, wanted to put a 4-lane expressway right through there. But I organized with a group of women, with a group of artists, theater makers, and we stopped him. And we stopped that expressway. So I want to introduce you to some of the other artists, some of this great history that we have of performers, the shoulders that we have to stand on to fight
things that we have now, injustices like this pipeline. Would you like to meet them?
Yeah.
All right, let's continue. This way. Can you all hear me? I know there's a lot of construction here. We're always just building and building and building in this city, aren't we? So, the West Village, jazz, beat poetry, avant-garde, art, social movements, everything. It was the epicenter of Bohemian culture right here, right? Starting in the 19th century. And there was a hotel, Hotel Albert, which is on 11th Street and University, where a whole lot of artists and writers hung out, like Walt Whitman, Anais Nin, and someone very special I want to introduce you to. Here he is, Andy Warhol, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Andy. Would you like to say something to us? Speak nice and loud so people can hear you.
I feel very excited right now. I'm very excited.
Yes?
Yes. This is sort of like the World's Fair where you're in those Ford cars and there's like a voice behind you and you don't have to think. It's really wonderful. I think it's really wonderful. If you want to interview me, I feel like really empty right now. So when you give me the questions, just give me the answers and I'll repeat them. That's fine. I think that'd be really nice.
That's your 7 minutes of fame, right, Andy? Is that what it is, or 6 minutes?
15 minutes.
15 minutes of fame we all get. So.
All of you will be famous for 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Big hand for Andy
Don't
Warhol.
forget, thank you, Andy. So in the West Village, we also had amazing theater, right? The avant-garde, the living theater, the radical street theater of the living theater, which is still thriving in the Lower East Side, the theater of the absurd. Marcel Duchamp also started with a gang of his friends. He jumped up on the Washington Square arch and set off all these balloons and said that he proclaimed this the independent republic of Greenwich Village. So we have a wonderful history of these wild, wacky troublemakers and beauty makers right here, like Andy Warhol. And also in the theater world, a very special and significant woman, Edna St. Vincent Millay, right here.
I was named after the famous and notorious hospital, St. Vincent's. My friends called me Vincent. I'm gone now. St. Vincent's is gone. And I have great fear that the people of the West Village who don't have a hospital, when this horrible pipeline potentially explodes, who will care for them? But I lived in the West Village. Oh, how I lived in the West Village. I was part of the group that created the Cherry Lane Theater, and it's still here. And I moved upstate New York, and I died in Austerlitz, Columbia County, New York. But before I died, I wrote many famous poems. A verse, from figs, from thistles. What shall I be but a prophet and a liar? My mother was a leprechaun. My father was a friar. I was teethed on the crucifix and cradled underwater. Whom shall my playmates be but the adder and the frog?
Oh, thank you, Edna. So who will our friends be, huh? The liars or the, what was the other? The prophets, right? Hopefully the prophets. Also, in 1938, West Village housed the first racially integrated nightclub in all of the United States, Cafe Society. Did you know that? Where Miles Davis played, John Coltrane, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, all these amazing artists started in the hotbed of the belly of the West Village right here. Let's continue on, right? Speaking of the hotbed, you also know about the Beat Generation. We had Allen Ginsberg, we had Jack Kerouac, we had, wait, who do we have right here? Diane DePrima. Come around. You gotta stay close for a beat poet, you know, and when she reads her poem, you gotta snap afterwards. Hello, Diane. You have something for us?
Cool.
Nice and loud, Diane.
There is no way out of the spiritual battle. There is no way you can avoid taking sides. There is no way that you cannot have a poetics. No matter what you do, plumber, baker, teacher, You do it in the consciousness of making or not making your world.
Yes. Thank you, Edna. There is no way to not take sides, she said, right, people? Are you starting to catch a theme here? A general theme of all of these wonderful artists who will buoy us up to live from what they gave us, to fight the injustice we see in the world. So also, one of our friends that left us an amazing poem that he wrote at 16 years old, somewhere on the lines of Diane de Prima's "Do not go gentle into that good night." Mr. Dylan Thomas, who unfortunately was, well, he drank himself to death. He hit a record, 18 whiskeys in a row at the White Horse Tavern, which is still open. Oh, well, why don't you tell us, Dylan?
Well, according to the BBC, it's just all bullshit, but I actually want to say, I want to use a brief bit of alliteration to thank the police for protecting the pipelines from our poems. Everyone, cheers!
Cheers, Dylan Thomas. Thank you for what you left us.
I'm going to go back to being dead now.
Go gentle into that good night. And also the music scene. Did I almost forget the music scene? And what we still have, Cafe Wa, The Bitter End, all of these hot music clubs. And we have here the lovely Joan Baez. Please get closer, get closer.
Everyone, come closer. In addition to being an amazing folk singer, I'm also a hardcore political activist. I'm in jail right now for civil disobedience, and I'm feeling a little down. Could you all sing with me? We shall overcome. Just one verse, will you all? Yes. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome one day. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome one day. Thank you.
Thank you for what you gave us, Joan.
Thank you.
A gift to our culture. She gave us the songs of a revolution. All the way from Germany, Nico.
Leader of lunacy, paralyze my infancy, petrify the empty cradle, bring home to me.
Oh, thank you. Yes, yes. Oh, and last but not least, an icon, Barbara Streisand. I'll march my band out. I'll beat my drum. And if I'm found out, you'll turn up fat, sir. At least I didn't make it fat, sir. Guess I didn't fake it. Get ready for me, love, cause I'm a comer. I've simply got to march my heart to drum, and nobody, no, is gonna rain on that parade. Please don't rain on her parade. And how could I forget the wonderful, colorful gay movement in the West Village? The Stonewall riots started here, Washington Square Park, Christopher Street, the birth of such a wonderful movement that's still carrying on to this day that we have to thank to the people here. And thank you so much, Barbara, for that. The thing about the West Village was this: people would gather in the sidewalks, we would be in the parks, people would police each other, not by policing, but by looking out for each other, right? We would be invested in our neighborhood, invested in our community, looking out, knowing what was going on, knowing when there's a pipeline underneath the ground. Sometimes people now think they live in towers, don't even know their neighbors, don't even want to know their neighbors. This is a time when we have to come back to that culture of being together in the streets and in the neighborhood and knowing one another. I leave you with that thought and bring you back to Owen.
And I'm going to make you think even more. You see that hole in the ground right there? That is what's known as the vault. This pipeline that's being brought into New York City is terminating here, and Con Edison is going to build a major pipeline from this point forward up to 16th Street. And the problem we have with this pipeline is, first of all, how many of you have heard of the San Bruno explosion out in California? Well, it's that kind of a pipeline with even higher capacity being brought in here underneath this street with all this vibration into a densely populated neighborhood. And I'll show you the physical pipeline later on, and terminating here and then linking into a pipeline that takes us further north. The second thing that's wrong with this pipeline is it brings in natural gas from the Marcellus frac fields. Out in Pennsylvania, they're creating high-volume hydrofrac wells that do a serious job of cutting down trees, polluting water, of polluting the air. It's really tearing the society of Pennsylvania apart. And this pipeline is to bring that kind of frac gas to market here in New York City. And not only here in New York City, but to markets around the world. The third thing that's wrong with this pipeline is that the gas that comes from the Marcellus frac fields, it comes from a rock formation that has a very high level of radioactivity. And this is something that's been known for a long time. It's not controversial, but what's different about the new kind of drilling that's happening in Pennsylvania is they're drilling deep into that rock formation. The rock formation has high levels of uranium, which then decays into radium, and then that further decays and emits a gas called radon gas. Radon gas is odorless, it's chemically inert, but it's radioactive, and therefore it's a health problem. And in fact, radon gas is the second largest cause of lung cancer after smoking in this country. So people that live outside of New York City who have cellars commonly have to test their cellars and ventilate the cellars because it just seeps in through the ground. Here we're going to have a pipe that pumps it into Manhattan at 700 or more pounds per square inch, 30 inches wide, radon gas mixed in with the natural gas. And there's no testing for it. Con Ed has told us in public forums that they don't even look at that. They're not even aware of it. They're not watching for it. And that brings us to another problem with this project, and that is that it's an automatic approval on the federal level, which brings the pipe up to this pier. There was a process, that's how we don't know so much about it, but it's a process to approve the pipeline, not to prevent the pipeline. And from here forward into New York City, there is no process. There's been no environmental review. There's been no review of the security implications. As you all know, this part of Manhattan has been a terrorist target before. We have a monument to that being built as we speak. And here we have a pipeline that's literally a few feet underground and in fact is exposed where it comes out of the river. A prime target. And not only do we have all these apartment houses and businesses, and now we have this museum, we have a playground over here, just a couple hundred feet away from the pipeline, where toddlers play. And over here on the other side of this building is a fire station that parks the fireboat that's 50% of New York's marine firefighting capability. It is so close to the pipeline that if some stray barge were to come along at night, maybe out of control, and ram it, and the thing were to explode for that reason, innocently, the fire station would probably be disabled and be unable to fight the fire. So for all these reasons, we think this is a crazy idea, and we've been advocating very strongly about it. In fact, we've been so loud about it that whereas 2 years ago nobody was talking about the Spectra pipeline or radon, this year, just 2 weeks ago, at the mayoral forum, it was a prime topic. It was brought up as a question. Every single mayoral candidate, including the guy who doesn't believe in climate change, every single mayoral candidate thinks this pipeline is a crazy idea. So that really is indicative of what's going on here. Wait a minute, who's this? Who are you?
Owen Crowley, thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
folks, thank you so much. My name is Greg Ebel. On behalf of Spectra Energy, I am the president and CEO, and I want to thank Occupy the Pipeline for giving us this opportunity to speak on behalf of our project. Spectra Energy views sustainability as holding three essential parts: social, economic, and environmental. It's really a virtuous circle. Environmental sustainability, or responsibility, or respect for the environment. Please pass this around. Pipeline safety is of critical importance to Spectra Energy. Now, as some of you may know, there have been several dramatic cases, some would even say tragic cases in the past couple of years, and I assure you that these are very, very rare. The safety and the integrity of our assets is of utmost importance to Spectra Energy. We invest $750 million per year into the protection of the integrity of our assets, and we make sure that we have the right people power in place to support our assets. Just last year, Spectra Energy has created a new position, the Vice President of the Asset Integrity. That's right, it is for you. Thank you so much, sir. I am one of you. Our people are your people. And when we build a project, we make sure that we engage and ask what is going on. And we listen to your concerns and the expressions and respond and make slight adjustments if we have any questions.
That was so sincere.
No, stop. This is a lie. Look what it says here. Poison. And it is a lie about the community. In fact, communities are against this pipeline. When this application came into community view, Jersey City is against the pipeline. Every single church, business, except for your business, every single individual, every single school, there are 500 individuals, schools, businesses, real estate developers, community centers, they all filed against this pipeline. So this is against the community.
This is the smallest radon gas mask in the world.
Yeah.
Pass it around, take one.
Not only that, but I went to a community board meeting in December. The community board was against this. The Hudson River Park Trust, they voted against it. And then the mayor's girlfriend, who's the chairman of the board of Hudson River Park Trust, she made the vote again to permit this pipeline that will mainline radon.
No. You didn't use the gas mask!
Not again!
Another death on our tour. I think our tour guide has just died of radon poisoning.
Get those masks, people. You're gonna need them.
Owen, can we bring you back to life for the rest of the tour? I think we can help tomorrow. All right.
Okay, good.
Good job, Owen. Okay.
Thank you, Owen.
You've heard about activists who have changed this neighborhood because they cared enough about doing something that was against the will of the community, right? We now are the will of the community wanting to fight this pipeline. I want to know who here wants to be a Jane Jacobs. Can I get my hands in? Who wants to be a Jane Jacobs? Who's against this?
It's fun, people. Look at me.
Come on, let's get our hands in, everybody. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3. Fight the Spectra pipeline. 1, 2, 3. Fight the Spectra pipeline. Okay. Where we're gonna go from here on this tour, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Hurricane Sandy. As we know, Hurricane Sandy came in here and completely covered this neighborhood in water. As a matter of fact, Con Edison, who's going to be in charge of this pipeline, their electrical grid was out from 14th Street all the way to the bottom of Manhattan. all the way into the Rockaways and through Brooklyn, through Staten Island, people didn't have heat or electricity throughout the entire winter. This is how responsible Con Edison is, and this is how they respond to emergencies, which is why we are concerned about the Spectra pipeline. I want to introduce you guys to Hurricane Sandy. Would you like to follow me?
Yeah.
Come on. So as the hurricane came ripping in, the water levels rose in this neighborhood sincerely to this level and above. It was much louder than this. She's drawing here the water line of this building during Hurricane Sandy. Here she comes.
This is the water line. When I raged through here, Hurricane Sandy. Remember me and my sisters, maybe Irene and Katrina? Well, that's just the beginning of it. Because you know what? There's going to be more of us. There's going to be more of us in the coming year. 2 to 11% more hurricanes. And not those little 1% tropical storms. You're not going to get little Tammy and little Hannah and little Bill. You're going to get 4 and 5-point storms. And you know why we're coming? We're coming because you don't seem to care. You don't seem to care about your children and your grandchildren and our beautiful, beautiful planet. But we care, and we're trying to warn you. And this is the warning. And where is that woman from Spectra with her assets? I'm gonna tell you, you better shape up. We better shape up. Otherwise, we are gonna come and rain on all your parades.
The reason why we have these superstorms is because of our industry. The fossil fuel industry, the extraction industry, is not living with the planet, it's living on the planet. We have the capability, we have the brain power, we have the infrastructure already in place to live with the natural occurrences of renewable energy on this planet. Wind power, we have the beautiful sun out here that's just going where? Providing us with amazing energy every single day. We can do this. And I want to take you guys across the highway and we will get a first-hand look at the Spectra pipeline. We'll get a first-hand look at the playground. And we're going to introduce you to some ways that you can get involved. Pipeline, right now it's actually barreling its way through Staten Island and it is destroying several natural breeding grounds. We all know it's spring. This is time for the birds and the bees. All this natural occurrence is now all their habitats are being destroyed right now by the Spectra pipeline. This is where the Spectra pipeline is going from Jersey City, and it's coming up right here. As you see this yellow structure here, covered in cement that easily breaks down. Coming right there and going right underneath the Whitney. It will go under the Highline Park and into Chelsea. And so what we are asking people to do, we have postcards to send out to our candidates. Pardon? We have 1,000 of these. If everybody would like to fill these out today, we are encouraging you to do so. We are also encouraging you to come to a forum at Cooper Union on May 14th, talking about radon and lung cancer in New York City, which is what the Spectra pipeline is going to bring into New York City. We also want to encourage you to start talking to our representatives. And a couple of years ago, before I became an activist, I actually never really started talking to my representatives. And then when I took my first step and did it, it was so easy. They're just people. And you can actually tell them what you want, and they'll listen to you. but it just takes a lot of us to do it. We need to now start the conversation about renewables, about offshore wind power. We have such a dynamic shoreline in the mid-Atlantic United States to provide wind power for the nation. We have this amazing sun right now that gives to us tirelessly every day. We have, how many rooftops in New York City do we have to power our city? We can do this, but it takes all of us to actually start that conversation and demand it. Then we can stop dealing with explosions and radioactivity next to our children's playground. Please fill out one of these Dear Candidate postcards. We will help you find who your candidate is and help you mail it in. And that is the end of our tour. We have